You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, trucking the truth across America. And I, my friends, am your Godzilla of the truth in America. It's great to have you with us. This is Monday, April 15th. This is tax day. This is the day that you're going to find out really how much money you saved because of the Trump tax cuts. And it is huge, as the president would say. We've had a number of people texting us and calling us up. They went to taxcutswork.com. They put in the tables, and they're saving $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 on their taxes. Unbelievable. The Trump tax cut is driving the economy forward. Record jobs, record numbers. Joining us now to sort all this out, he's also a potential nominee for the Federal Reserve Board in the United States, and we're enthusiastically in favor of that. Former Trump campaign economic advisor and informal advisor to the President of the United States, Steve Moore. Steve, great to have you back, man.
Hi, John. Happy Tax Day.
Well, Steve, I want to get your take on, you were one of the architects of the Trump tax cuts all the way back when you were his chief economic advisor during the campaign, advising the president, should he win, of the opportunity of what would happen with the type of tax cut that he's done. Now that it's been passed, it's law, it's in play, and it's now April 15th, and people are all filing their taxes. What's been the real benefit, Steve, of the Trump tax cut plan?
Well, I saw the president a few weeks ago, and I just said to him, Mr. President, this plan is working out better than we even thought it would in terms of the economic benefit to the economy and to workers and increase in wages. And I said, just half jokingly, I said, you got to stop creating so many jobs, Mr. President. We don't have enough workers to fill them. And my favorite statistic, by the way, John, on the economy today is 7.1 million. You know what that number is?
No.
That's the number of unfilled jobs we have in America today. That's more open jobs than the entire population of the state of Indiana. And guess what? There's 6 million officially unemployed people in the country. So think about that, John. Even if we put every single unemployed worker in America in a job, we'd still have 1 million jobs to fill. So that's an amazing, I don't think we've ever seen that before in the history of America. The numbers just came out last week on the new unemployment insurance claims. The lowest number of people signing up for unemployment benefits since the late 1960s. This is an economy that is just roaring. It is amazing. It's resilience. I think it's actually picking up steam. It's not losing steam. So I'm very proud of the record that Donald Trump has assembled. I'm proud of the fact I played a very small role in helping him do this. And you mentioned those numbers, John, on how much people are saving. I love these stories. I hear them all the time, too. We've done some analysis at the Heritage Foundation. We estimate that the average middle-class worker, somebody between, say, $40,000 and $80,000 a year, they're saving, $1,800 to $2,500 a year, depending on how many kids they have. And that's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, and it's making a big difference, Steve Moore, in people's lives. And that's really the thing that you don't realize. Every person that has a job that's got a better job than they had, or has a job that didn't have a job, or returning to the employment market, they can now, we had so many people, Steve, after the recession, as you know, of 2008-9, that just couldn't find a job. So they just dropped out, right? They just gave up. Now they're coming back. They're taking care of their families. They're being able to do things they couldn't do. And I tell you what, Stephen Moore, at the end of the day, jobs and prosperity is the great political leveler in America, because whether you're Republican, Democrat, red or blue, if you have a job and you feel good about what you're doing and you're able to take care of your family better than you were, that is a great thing.
John, one of my favorite other statistics is 71%. And you know what that number is?
No.
That's the number of Americans, according to the CNN poll, which, by the way, CNN is hardly favorable to Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. CNN found that 71% of Americans now rate the economy as good or great. That's up from that's double what that number was throughout the Obama years. So people feel much better about their financial situation, about the future of the direction of the economy. They feel things are going in a good direction, and they're right. It is going. And by the way, there are a lot of people who don't necessarily like Donald Trump's behavior or don't like his style. maybe don't agree with some of his policies, but in presidential elections, it comes down to two issues. It comes down to the economy, how you feel like the direction the economy is going. And number two, security. Do you feel that the president is keeping the country safe? And, you look at those two issues, John. I mean, Trump is a runaway winner on those two issues.
We're with Stephen Moore. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, April 15th. This is Tax Day. Thanks for being with us and the John Fredericks Radio app. We're with Stephen Moore, Distinguished Visiting Fellow, Project for Economic Growth, Institute for Economic Freedom and Opportunity at the Heritage Foundation. Steve also was the chief economic advisor to then-candidate Trump during the campaign and has remained as a very influential shall you say, informal advisor now to the president on economic issues. Stephen Moore, the other great statistic here that has also gone under the radar screen, and you mentioned it, the fact that we have the lowest unemployment amongst so many different levels of people, African Americans, Hispanics, women, in record numbers opening businesses. But here's the other thing. Wage growth, Stephen Moore, for the first time, has increased consistently. Tell us about that.
You're right. I mean, those are great numbers. I think one of the things we're proudest of is what's happening with wages, because it's one thing to create jobs, but are we creating good jobs? And the answer is yes. I mean, by the way, since the election of Donald Trump, we've created, did you know there's 1 million additional manufacturing, construction, and mining jobs? So we are back in terms of, the kind of middle-class jobs that have been disappearing from the country. And, I always say that instead of, factories now going from Michigan to Mexico, they're going from Mexico back to Michigan. And
right.
I was in Ohio last week. It's absolutely booming with the shale oil and gas revolution. So you're right about that. And incidentally, on the wage gains, these statistics are just so amazing. You're right. This is the first time in about 15 years we've seen real wage gains. That is, wage gains that are above the inflation rate for workers. Number two, the Wall Street Journal reported last week that the biggest wage gains have gone to the people at the bottom. So, we're not increasing income inequality in the country. We're reducing it by increasing opportunity. And the third one I'll throw to you is that, you talked about all these groups like blacks, Hispanics, women, and so on that have lowest unemployment rate ever. One of the things we're proud of is unemployment rate of people who don't have a college degree. Mm-hmm. Those numbers are, the lowest unemployment rate ever. So it's not just an expansion. It's an expansion that's benefiting virtually every segment of our society.
Stephen Moore, why then do we have so many colleagues in your field that are the naysayers of this economy, that keep predicting the coming catastrophe, the economic calamity, the crash, the disaster? First they said it would be the tariffs that would destroy the economy. Then because some farmers in Iowa couldn't sell soybeans to China, that was going to bring the whole thing down, crashing. I mean, we get these black forecasts by these people, and the economy just keeps chugging along. What is up with that, Stephen?
I think look, it's human nature that you don't like to be proven wrong, right? I don't like to be proven wrong, and I'm right most of the time, but I'm not
but you never
right.
You never are wrong, Stephen.
But they were having, what's ironic about what I've been going through over the last few weeks, and because the left has all their knives out for me and they're trying to destroy me, and I keep asking the question, why is it that they are so against me? The New York Times had an editorial the other day. They called me, quote, supremely unqualified, unquote, for the Fed. And I thought, what is going on here? And I think part of it is that they hate the fact that I've proven them wrong. And, that they hate the fact that Donald Trump has proven them wrong. I mean, these are the people, John, you remember this, before the election, these are the people at the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Harvard Economics faculty that said if Donald Trump is elected president, he's going to cause a second Great Depression. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
He hasn't caused a second Great Depression. He's caused exactly the opposite, an economic boom. And that's embarrassing to these folks. And they can't forgive Trump, and to a lesser extent me, for proving them wrong.
Well, because it was you as the president's chief economic advisor during the campaign, it was your basic economic platform that was the centerpiece, that formed the centerpiece of his policies and that campaign. And as you're right, all the naysayers, all the left, the LA Times, et cetera, all blasted you and him and saying, that there would be this economic disaster. Then at the beginning, they tried to say it was the Obama recovery, which was like asinine. It was all your policies and the president's policies. Now you get to the Federal Reserve, and, we expected this would happen, Stephen. You're supremely qualified for this. You have the credentials, but it's basically policy. And what has happened there, as you know, is you've got a Keynesian mentality, and your potential chairman, Jerome Powell, basically saying, look, based on disproven Keynesian economic theory that went out the window in the 70s, basically, with all that failures, they said, look, if the economy continues to truck along, you're going to have inflation. In order to stop that, because of so much employment, well, we have to raise interest rates to stop the economy's growth. How does that make sense?
Well, this is the reason that one of the reasons I think Donald Trump, wants to put me on the Fed is because, I believe that growth does not cause inflation. I want high employment. I want wage growth. I want prosperity, and I want stable prices. And I think all of those things are highly consistent with each other. And there are a lot of people on the Fed that believe, and a lot of people on all these talking shows that believe when you get growth and you get high employment, that causes inflation. I think that's a idiotic idea. It's a Keynesian, we call that the Phillips curve.
The Keynesian Phillips curve, right.
For 50 years. By the way, it just defies common sense, right? If the economy is booming and producing more goods and services, as Art Laffer would say, if the economy produces more apples, what happens to the price of apples? The price of apples goes down. It doesn't go up. Mm-hmm. We have shifted out the supply of goods and services because we're producing more. That's good for consumers. That's good for workers. And I'm an advocate. I'm going to be the growth hawk at the Fed. I don't believe growth causes inflation. I believe growth reduces prices.
Well, anybody that took Economics 101 basically learned about the Phillips curve that was taught as economic orthodoxy. I'm 61 years old back when I went. I have a degree in economics, master's in it, but that was basically the cornerstone, right? That if unemployment is up, inflation is down. If unemployment goes down, inflation automatically has to boomerang up. And right now we're defying that. But so you've got people, and there's a lot of people that believe that maybe the Fed is almost sabotaging the economy. In 2018, they had 4 rate increases. Now Jerome Powell says, well, 2019, maybe I went overboard, maybe 2, maybe not any. He says that things immediately get better just based on what he said.
Right.
What is your pathway here going through the nominating process?
So I want stable prices. I mean, the purpose of having a currency, is that you want the dollar that you hold in your pocket, and the 5 and the 10 and the 20, and the dollars you hold in your savings account. You want to make sure that those dollars don't lose value over time. You want them to be stable. That's why you have a currency. And you mentioned the 1970s. I'm old enough to remember, John. I think you are too. When we had 15% inflation, and literally people didn't want to hold on to dollars because they were the longer you held on to them, the less they were worth. I always tell students, I'm like, you don't think inflation, you want to know what inflation is. Imagine somebody in Venezuela today holding on to Venezuela pesos. Why would you do that? They're not going to be worth anything tomorrow. Right. So I want a stable currency. People say, oh, you're a dove. You want inflation. No, I don't. I don't want inflation. I want the dollar to be as good as gold, to retain its value over time. I just have to ask you, John, why is that controversial? Isn't that why we have a currency?
It's crazy. I mean, I had the opportunity to see the Steve Forbes movie with you, Money, a couple of weeks ago at the theater that we were in.
Great prosperity.
Yeah, it was absolutely fabulous film. Everybody should see it. Steve and the producers there, the directors, did a fabulous job. It kind of takes you through the history. But I don't know why it would be controversial. What you want to do is bring a stable currency that doesn't lose value for those that carry it. How is that controversial?
Only a PhD economist at Harvard wouldn't believe that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just unbelievable how crazy some of these people are. In terms, they overthink these things. It's not complicated. You have by the way, I'm not a fan of the gold standard, but I do believe you want to keep the dollar kind of as good as gold. And if people have not seen Steve Forbes' video, it's called "In Money We Trust," and I think it's about an hour-long video. It's fabulous, and I think every American should see that video.
It is a great video that Steve Forbes put out, and Money We Trust is playing on a lot of PBS stations right now, but you can also just go to your favorite video place, YouTube, whatever, in Money We Trust Steve Forbes. It's about what? It's about 50 minutes. It's going to be a great watch. I would absolutely do that. It's going to teach you a lot, open your eyes to some things. And what it does, too, is exposes a lot of the myths that are out there today. But, Steve, I knew immediately that you were the guy for the Federal Reserve when you got named, and rather than talk about your policies, the crazy left wing.
John, and I look forward to talking to you again soon and seeing you in Washington at one of our future events. You're always welcome, and appreciate the kind words.
Stephen Moore, thank you so much. Thanks for being with us on this tax day. One of the major architects of the Trump tax cut early on. Stephen, thanks for being with us.